So hello, good day. So once you have done your schematic floor plan and section, now it's time to encode in CAD or draft it formally. So either which we will be doing this week. I'm going to be giving you some pointers, some mistakes to avoid, and what are the do's. Okay, number one, so this is an example of last year's batch of the drafting class, and these are drawings that have been done for the formal drafting of their floor plan. Well, this is a different form that was given to them. Of course, like the reverse of what you were given. And some of the things that to keep in mind when you're trying to draw it out or draft it formally. First is the number one thing is about staircase. Now, I've seen schematic drawings that have been done like so, as a symbol for staircase and doing like that. And so if this is like the wall and this is just that what was done. Now you have to think of this again more realistically, and I've already showcased this example of a more comprehensive tutorial on how to do staircases. For example, this staircase is just haphazardly done without thinking about the realism of this. Like, how would this happen upstairs? So if you go up, and then what? And then if these are all railings, what do you do? I mean, this entire thing is not realistic. So I've seen this schematic drawing before, and I've really commented on some of the things. So this is the number one mistake that any student could make in doing staircases. So this is a more formal way of doing it. So you have your steps, of course, count them, calculate them, and then you would have a landing. So I would like to suggest that you have one entire landing space, given that the space is not limited. And this is because, you know, what are landings for? There is a safety feature in staircases. Then when, especially for the aged person, and you can actually rest on this, and it's even a space for activities. Like I would know people who would draw on the staircase landing, who would do their homework there, who would work there or play there. So it's a halfway point between the each floor, and it's a safety feature because if, say, you slip down and you fall down, you don't go all the way down to the ground floor. Instead, you most likely will stop on the landing. So here, another illustration that was not properly done is the illustration of the upper part of the stairs, which are supposed to be in hidden line form. So again, as I mentioned in the tutorial for staircase volume illustration, is that the the last 1/4 of this is in hidden line form because you're like cutting through 3/4 the way of the ground floor. So basically, this is the symbol. This is correctly done, right? Although a cleaner way of doing it is that the cut could have been like this, without that extra wave there. Okay, dimensions, don't worry about dimensions yet, but there are things that are wrong here, wrongly done. They're not properly done. All right, do be careful. Number two, another thing that keeps happening in the drawings of first years are the doors. So illustrate them properly. Like, you cannot have double swing doors that are just 0.6 meters, and or sometimes even 0.5 meters. So normally the main door of any house is the special door, and they're a lot more wider than the rest of the doors. But here in this case, a double swing, it's okay. And this one I measured about 0.7 or 0.75 each. That's fine. But normally you don't see these types of doors. Normally, this is one big swing. That's normally about 1.9 at least meters of door panel that does not include the door frame. Number three, always keep in mind that your furniture should be scaled. And something like this, I would assume that this is a pot for plants. So do the correct illustrations for these types, like illustrate plants rather than just the vase itself. Of course, another big mistake, the number three mistake that the novice designer would do is actually always forget that there is a step down to the bathroom, or if it's not going to be a step down, at least a change of flooring to indicate that this is a tiled area. So a tiled area should show the tiles. And another mistake that this person is doing is that there is not enough space for the left side of the water closet. So if you're going to sit down here, the left side tends to be too near to the wall. So this one, the center line of this water closet should be at least 0.4, ideally 0.5 if possible. But the minimum is going to be 0.4 from the center line of the water closet. Now kitchens tend to be bigger as much as possible, and normally you would have a space for the refrigerator or the fridge. In this case, it was not done, and there's always an indication of also the overhead cabinets. There should be also provisions for an overhead cabinets that's 0.4 meters in depth, illustrated here in hidden line form. Now for the second floor, so this scheme has 3 floors, 3 levels, and the way you're going to illustrate the staircase is going to be a bit different. So there's one going down, which is going to the ground floor, and this one, another one, is going up. So there's an arrow there. So there will be two cuts as such. And there's always a blank space here. So this one is going up to the 3rd level, and this one is going down to the ground floor. So this is a bit different because now there are 2 cuts. It just symbolizes that there are 2 different planes that are, one's going up and one's going down. So we cannot illustrate them colliding with each other. So there's a bit of space to differentiate between the 2 planes. Again, that step down or that line of flooring is not indicated here. So I just drew that. I guess that's a carpet, but although, again, you need to illustrate this with thinner lines, of course, the tiling, just to note that this is a tiled area. Okay, another mistake, things like the thicknesses of walls, like for example, this is 0.2, therefore the interior wall should be thinner. Why is it that? Why not just do a uniform type of wall thicknesses? Well, it's a matter of also construction costs. So the outer walls are a bit thicker. In temperate countries, that's the thickness means that it's probably filled with insulation to keep out the cold. But here in the Philippines, in tropical countries, the thickness is meant for water resistance, while the thinner wall, it doesn't need to be that thick. So it won't cost the same amount. So it need not be that expensive because it's the same thickness. So it'd be a thinner a bit. So that would bring the cost down by 25% or so, or 30% or so. Again, you need to illustrate walls with thicker lines. Here, I'm just seeing all thicknesses are the same. So you need to differentiate the walls from the furniture. So walls are illustrated with thicker pens. So when we go up to the 3rd floor, there would be no more up here. So that's a staircase because there's no more 4th level. So there's no more extra cut there. Actually, there's no cut at all. The arrow, when going down, this is down, goes all the way to there. And of course, illustrate your railings. So this is going down to the 2nd floor. sliding door will not work because this is a bit too narrow for anyone to get through. Again, be careful with your measurements. Be careful with the realism of door panels. Okay, another common mistake that people do is really the ventilation for bathrooms. There needs to be an illustration where the window is all the time. There need to be always at least 10% opening of the area ratio of the bathroom. Again, I'm seeing that this sliding door is not going to work properly because it's too narrow if you open like 50%, and this is not going to be it's not a comfortable dimension. It needs to be at least 0.8 or 0.9, ideally clear. So this is just one example. Now, when we go through the section of this, now I can see straight away that the staircase is wrong and the ratio is wrong. See, this is 45 degrees, meaning the riser, well, it's not really 45 degrees, so it's slightly off. But normally it's about 30 degrees. Now, if I measure this, it's slightly steeper. So the ratio is supposed to be something like this, very ever slightly. Now, you need to calculate your number of steps per level more diligently, all right, to be more realistic, or else this entire drawing is not really realistic. Now we can see the section, yes. Actually, the stringer needs to be a bit more thinner. It's roughly 30 degrees, something like this. All right, so this is correctly done here. The finished floor line of the second floor, which is this, and then the ceiling line of the ground floor. Except that the ground floor needs to be it should have been raised up a bit from the natural ground line. Another mistake here is really there's a difference between the NGL and the ground FFL. Doors should be illustrated with door frames. So we all know this from our first exercise in your dream bedroom. And of course, illustrate your windows if there need to be windows here. Your section should be going through staircases, because that's the one thing that students would avoid doing because it's much more complicated, but it gives out the correct information for anyone doing any type of house design or any architectural design, is to go through the staircase and see how realistic this building is going to work. Of course, do the necessary windows wherever you can for cross ventilation or ventilation. Then the roofing here, there's no such thing as a flat roof. So they need to be like even a slight angle where the water would go to the drainage system. So this one could have been, you would have a gutter somewhere there. This can be a wall, a gutter here. And then this could be at an angle of 20 degrees or so to have a roofing here. So the form is not going to be violated. Well, the roofing cannot be seen if any person is standing here, for example. And all they see is actually the edge of this building, not the roofing. So this can work in a tropical area. And this ceiling can be raised and has a thickness. But don't just do a flooring of the second floor and then showing the ground floor. See a person here. There needs to be a sort of ceiling. So roughly, you have to keep in mind that this is at least 500 millimeters or 0.5 meters from the second floor to the ceiling of the ground floor. And if you're wondering what is the raised dimension from the natural ground line to the ground floor FFL, could be just one step, which is at least 0.15. This is to prevent, of course, water from coming in. I'm going to show you a few more examples, of course, of these things. So that's a third floor. Okay. So if we take a look at the ground floor, okay, the staircase was done properly, okay, with the hidden line going up. This is the parking. Now, if we go to the second floor, we could see that there's going to be a third level. And we can see that this is going down to the ground floor and this is going up to the third level. Again, there's a missing step there, although that's just one thing. Storage, windows, kitchen. You have your spacing for a ref, although it could be that small, yes. And then we go up to the third level. Now, the sequencing here is kind of wrong. The first thing that you need to show if you're reading this is first is the ground floor, and then you go on to the second floor, and then the third floor. So when you're reading floor plans, you're going to read them from left to right, up to down. That's the sequence. So this is the sequencing here is kind of wrong. And then she illustrated this like so. Okay, I can understand that the section cut is here and she projected it to here. Again, this is what I'm saying, that you don't just try to draw out the FFL of the second floor and just show the underneath of that flooring, but rather you illustrate also the ceiling of the ground floor. So this entire thing is black. So it's that thick. It's about 0.5. Here, thickness of show the ceiling. You don't need to show out this the second line or underneath the slab. And of course, the roofing. So the roofing would have a small gutter there. It goes up about 20 to 30 degrees. Goes up that and that. And of course, there's the ceiling. It's the thickness of that. The realism. And if you're going, okay, we're not going to ask you to draw cars, but there's a better way of illustrating cars. But in this case, this is not necessary for you to draw out the cars. So okay, so I'm showing you the third example of this. It's another form, of course. It's a different form from the first two. So going up staircase, and then the second floor, and then the third. So he has only 2 floors, but cuts like this are not necessary. These are supposed to be solid going down. And there's always wording like going down or up. So this is going up, this is going down. And then this is going up, although this is too tight, so that's not realistic. No space for a fridge, again. Maybe that's the fridge, but it should have been spaced. There's a bit of space from the wall to note on that. And again, always check the dimensions and the steps of your staircase to be realistic. And this is supposed to be hidden lines, not center lines. And also another thing to take note is that your section cut should be with a thick line. And of course, indicate it with your proper lettering. So this is wrong, actually, the arrow here. I don't know why there's 2 different directions. It should have been, if I don't know which is which. So it should be one direction, not 2. It's like, it has to be just one direction, showing this way. Not this, not this. So it's very confusing. So if I take a look at the section, so it's going that way, not that way. And this one, this is not entirely a good illustration of the staircase. So this is a redo for me. And of course, the roofing should be pitch as such. Okay. Anyway, that ends my some few tips on creating the floor plan a bit better and the sections, of course. And hoping that when you're encoding or drafting this in CAD or in manual drafting, that you keep these things in mind. It may prompt you to even actually improve on your schematics when you're trying to encode or draft your floor plans. So, anyway, see you again next time. Bye.